So everything in the universe has an expiration date, whether it be relationships or lifespans. Even stars have lifespans. Like, I was thinking about the fact that I'm like, if humanity does not drive itself to extinction, the sun will eventually explode, and that's going to lead to the destruction of the earth.
Nothing is safe from the passage of time. Is it all meaningless?
Not sorry to go there, but like, that thought did go through my head. The thought of my own impermanence and the impermanence of relationships in my life and just my family members, my friends, I guess, is something that can be like extremely uncomfortable. I don't think it's something that many people like to even consider. Like, we like to think of ourselves as this sort of fixed entity that is unchanging, like the unchanging self. Like, that is like a very Western ideology, I believe. And in like Buddhism, like in like Eastern philosophies, they embrace more of like this view of the changing self. And basically, simple story is that as your conditions in your life change, you change as well. If you look back at like your 16-year-old self, would you say that you're the same person? Because physically you're not. There might be some shared like identity aspects, but it's also likely that like a lot of parts of you are different. Like, your framework and like the way you view the world is just different now. And so it's like, how are you identifying yourself is something that I like constantly ask myself, I guess. I think this year has been quite weird, I will say that, because I've been thinking a lot about life in a somewhat existential way, but it also helps me to bring like meaning and fulfillment into my life. Which is why I wanted to like kind of like share some of my reflections and where they've gotten me. Relationships, it's so important to like value them in the present moment. We all have friends and people who like come into our lives for certain seasons and leave later on, and that's just like kind of normal. You don't have to like be friends with like one group of people like your entire life. And honestly, it would be sort of absurd if you were, because of the fact that you're going to change and so are those people in your life. A lot of times people look back and think of what their friendships or relationships were like and use that as their standard for what things should be like in the present moment. But I don't think that's really like a fair assessment, I guess, and just like a fair way to like view relationships, I guess, because of the fact that someone's situations could change and your situations could change, whether it's platonic or romantic. What they can give to you in that moment is dependent upon the constraints being placed upon them, and vice versa. So I think like a healthier way to perceive just like relationships is just viewing them as something that's like very special and that should be cherished because of the fact that that person right here, right now, is able to meet your needs in some sense. And of course you want to sustain that for as long as you can. But at the same time, if someone is like taken out of your life, it doesn't mean that like you're destined to be alone for the rest of your life. A lot of us like to jump to catastrophic thinking and believe that the people we're currently surrounded by in our lives are like, that's the end, and that is our people forever, because it just makes us feel safe, it makes us feel comfortable. But really, that's not the truth. It's like we're all going through this journey and gonna meet so many people that like love and cherish us, and vice versa. I think that I've gotten into like this like rut of thinking that I had to mold myself into like a certain way to fit in with a certain group of people, even if it didn't necessarily feel right to me, because of the fact that like I was scared of like being alone and just doing my own thing. As I've come to like spend more time in solitude and just really sit with some of like the dark thoughts that like come into my head, it could be all like, oh, you're never gonna meet other friends, or oh, you're wasting your 20s because you don't have that many people to hang out with, etc. Like, when you really sit with the thoughts and like you just reflect upon them, really just trying to like assess it and think to yourself like, is this true? Historically, has that proven itself to be true? And is this like the story like I want to be telling myself? Can really help you to unpack truth from what your brain wants you to believe. Not everyone can meet your needs forever. Really, the biggest person who should be like meeting your needs is yourself. because people aren't mind readers. And it's like, if you don't know yourself, you can't really expect other people to know you, because you have to be able to like articulate what it is that you need and want in the present moment. And I think a lot of people deny themselves going with their feelings, going with their gut, and that leads to so many issues. Back when I was in high school, my friend, Nabila, I don't know if she'll be watching this, but she said something along the lines of, as long as you're like alive, you're gonna keep changing your mind. And that's just a part of being human. I don't know why that like just came through, but it really did, I guess, resonate with me in some sense. A lot of people, including myself, are just like, we're like wired to be like scared of the unknown and embracing change in our lives. Because it's just like, no one really wants to go into like the next chapter. Like, it's like, I think like a lot of people would be like, have to be forced, honestly. And it usually does get to that point. It's usually like relationships get really unhealthy, or people get extremely burnt out in their work, instead of just stepping away gracefully and being like, this relationship has met its like breaking point, like it's no longer serving me, or this job is no longer for me, like I'm gonna resign in 3 months. Something like that would be a lot better than letting yourself get to a point where you're like extremely miserable. Go with what feels right now. I know, like from a personal standpoint, that like when I went into college, I like always wanted to be like veterinarian. I wanted to be working with animals in some capacity. And at the time, I didn't really have much experience working in environments in the real world with animals. And since then, like I've worked in 2 different vet clinics, I've worked in animal behavior research lab, etc. And I've seen like firsthand like what that work's like. And I just came to realize like this is not for me. I mean, it was like fulfilling like a lot of aspects of it, but other parts I just couldn't get behind. And I think that for the longest time, like I pushed myself to stick it through because that's what like I wanted as like a 12-year-old. And I know someone at work was like, do you really think it's like fair to like hold yourself accountable to like what you wanted as a 12-year-old before you had any real world experience? And I was like thinking to myself, yes, because that's like what's gonna make me happy. But the truth of the matter is like, no, like if you fulfill your childhood dreams, like you could still feel unfulfilled. I'm not saying to shy away from like a challenge, but just taking like a step back and just thinking like, is this actually like a journey that I want to embark on? Is this what I genuinely want? That is all. Goodbye.